we start. Uh, Hi, everyone. Again, big hi to Simone and big welcome and big thank you for being here again. I'm so excited that you are here. You are like part of every single conference, and I love that.
I'm excited to be back. It's definitely my favorite Montessori online conference for parents. Thank you for having me again.
I will push the record button so I don't forget. Uh, I don't forget this one. Perfect. Okay, at the beginning, maybe you can join us in the chat here on Zoom and also on YouTube. And you can tell us where you're from, if you're a parent, teacher, how many kids, how old are the kids, so we know who is here, who we are talking to. It's always really fun uh, to to read your comments, even though actually I know most of you here on Zoom since you are coming every day. But still, it would be really nice to see and hear. Simon, I guess you have a presentation for today, right? So I will just to say a few words about you, even though I believe everyone knows you, but still, and then I will give you the floor. What do you think?
Sounds perfect. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Perfect. So you are an AMI Montessori educator since 2004. You are, I would say, best-selling author. I don't have it in my notes that it would be somehow marked, but for me, you are a best-selling Montessori author of the Montessori Toddler, co-author of the Montessori Baby and the Montessori Child books. You also run your Instagram and podcast, the Montessori Notebook. You are a mother of two young adults. What do you want me to say more? You also ran the Jacaranda Tree Montessori for 22 years. Um, what am I missing? Tell me more. What should I add?
No, I think that's everything. I think after being in Montessori for 22 years, it becomes how you live. And I guess that's what I want to share with folks today is what does Montessori look like sometimes out of the classroom and definitely with families as well.
Perfect. Do you want to start your presentation? So I
Yeah,
don't
let's go,
keep you on
everybody.
time.
Well,
And
thank
I also want to say, please go ahead and share your questions, comments, and we can go back to them after the presentation is over. But I can read them in the meantime, make notes, and prepare them as well.
Perfect. So I'm just seeing who's here. Marietta from the UK and hello from Missouri. I have one boy who's 19 months, just a first-time mum trying to put the best foot forward. Absolutely. Erin, I run an in-home preschool for ages 16 months to 5.5 years and a parent of a 6-year-old. Merged Waldorf and Montessori concept in Portland. Thank you. And then Atira from Dallas, Texas, program director and instructor for Dallas Montessori TP. Happy to be here, Noel. I'm a preschool teacher aged from 2 to 6. In Solihull, UK, I am a grandmother to two girls aged 3.5 and a year. And from Tanzania, welcome. Kate from Slovakia teaches 0 to 3. A Montessori guide, a positive discipline trainer who loves sharing practical tools with caregivers, parents, teachers, and leaders through podcasts and social media. Also, the founder of two AMI schools. And from Lithuania, Vilnius, a teacher for 3 to 6-year-olds. Oh, well, that's amazing. We've got so many different people on the
And
call today.
I can read more from the YouTube chat. We have a 50-year-old Montessori guide and lecturer. We have from Oregon, USA. I'm a parent and educator of young children as well as a grandma. Finn from Germany, ECE teacher, learning Montessori. Erin from South Africa, mother of 3-year-old. Lagos. Then we have Lithuania, Poland, Canada, India, Kenya, Tanzania, Houston, Georgia, so many countries. So
Excellent.
now I
All
give
right.
you the space.
Let's get started. So, with that international audience, today we are going to talk about cultivating peace in an uncertain world, a Montessori approach for families. So, we are going to be focusing on Montessori outside of the classroom, but hopefully, even for those who are teachers, it means that you can see how this applies in your classrooms as well. As Lucy mentioned, I have been in Montessori now for 22 years, and I want to talk to you today about what we can do to cultivate peace in our homes. And I know that the world is a scary place right now, but what do we have control over when everything else feels uncertain, right? Because Montessori, we talks about a lot about peace and peace education, and people might think of a peace table, for example, where people can solve conflicts. But it's so much more. And I don't know if you've ever heard of a book called Best Weapon for Peace. It was written by Erica Moretti, and she is a historian and dove into Dr. Montessori's life as a pacifist. And she proposes, and I actually really tend to agree with her, that Dr. Montessori wasn't just creating a method of education. Actually, her ultimate goal was as a path for peace. And people often say, oh, well, it was to raise the children who are going to, be peacemakers in the world. But actually, what I love is that when we're working with children, when we're raising children in our families, it actually makes us show up as well, so that we're not just waiting for the next generation to clean up after us, but we need to take responsibility ourselves. Interestingly, she was also nominated 6 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. So it's pretty inspiring. And I hope that you'll walk away today feeling a little bit more certain about what you can do in these uncertain times. Hi, Yulia from Ukraine. Nice to see you, a teacher's aide. So I wanted to check in with you all first. I'm going to do a Menti with you. Have you ever used Menti before? So basically, I can drop this in the chat for those who are on the.
Zoom, and I can copy it to
Oh
YouTube
yeah, do
as
you
well.
want to chop it into YouTube?
Yeah.
But otherwise, you can go to menti.com and enter the code 87302759. Yeah, and I'm going to I like pop that code in there as well for menti.com in case you've got another thing. And then the code is this one. And if you go over to that page, what you should see, I'm going to switch my screen. My Zoom. Okay. That's fair. What makes you feel scared about your child's future? And there's a big word, violence, right there. So as you drop in your answers, I'll be able to see what things are feeling very scary for you right now. Racism, safety, absolutely. There is so much going on in the world right now. There's climate, there's war, there's attacks on schools, on our children, on immigrants, lots of things that can feel very, very uncertain, hatred, uncertainty, so much hatred. Yeah, drugs can definitely feel scary. The state of the world. So some more than one person has said safety in the state of the world. That gets bigger, so you can kind of see as well. Screens can feel scary. The quality of education, oh, absolutely. Predators, people taking advantage for sure. Lack of integrity. The economic situation, feeling left out. Politics, fast changing world. War, intolerance, colorism, stability or the lack of, bullying, yes. This feels like a really dark, bleak start to this film, to this opening, but I think it's important to mark what's going on and how scary it feels. It really, I want to honor, I would do want to acknowledge how much there's a lot that's taking up our mind space, and peace is not the norm. Fascism can feel very scary, absolutely. And it's really not dissimilar to what Dr. Montessori herself had in the time she was working. She had world wars. She was also having a lot of fascism, Mussolini and people like that. She had to leave and flee at that time. So it looks like safety, the state of the world, disconnection, lack of integrity, politics, screens, and environment are coming up as the biggest ones for us right now. And just all take a deep breath. That is a lot. You can keep popping them in the chat and I'll open up my screen again.
Let me just ask, Yogi is writing to me that there is an echo.
Ah,
Is everyone hearing an echo or everyone else is okay?
so what can happen if you logged in on 2 screens, then you might be getting an echo. So try and shut that down. Glad to hear it's okay there. Thank you for checking us. So I want to start with some inspiring words from Dr. Montessori. She wrote that the children of today will make all the discoveries of tomorrow. The future generation must not only know how to do what we can teach them, they must be able to go a step further. So I think this is really inspiring because it shows actually it's not about the information that we're giving to our kids, but it's actually about teaching them how they learn, who they are, and also trusting that they will go on to solve the next generation's problems. That doesn't mean we can sit back and relax. That means that we need to be active and take part and participate as well. But the children of tomorrow, we can't just feed them the facts of today. We need to actually go far further. So today we're looking at the peace education at home. And that takes like 4 different parts. So there's the child being at peace, firstly with themselves, then with others, with the environment, and then we look at our role as the Montessori adult. So let's jump in here straight away. This slide we're going to spend the longest time on. This is us helping our child come to peace with themselves, because you cannot have peace with anyone else unless you have peace in yourself, right? I wonder even how much you as adults sitting there right now feel peaceful in yourselves. And with all of that anxiety, how do we still tap into the peace within ourselves? So we'll circle back to that towards the end. But let's start with who I am. Who am I? They're always asking, right? How can we be at peace with ourselves if we don't know who we are? And so some of you have got young babies right now. Some of you will have got teenagers, and they're all still working out who they are. From the time they're in utero, they might hit the wall of the uterus. They might hear some sounds and they're realizing, oh, I have an impact on the world when my, caregiver reacts to the kick in in their stomach on the other side. It's even a toddler, realizing that they can get their own glass of water, and they're self-constructing themselves, we say in Montessori. We're working out who we are. But we can also aid their development by an anti-bias lens. So I don't know if any of you have read the book Anti-Bias Education for Young Children and Ourselves. It's by Louise Derman Sparks and Julie Olson Edwards. I can pop it in the chat for you as well. This book is an amazing resource, and she has like 4 goals of education. It's a framework that helps you to say, what's goal 1, the most important goal? I learned about this through Britt Hawthorne, who's also a Montessori educator and really interesting to follow. And goal 1 is actually helping the child to understand who they are. Because if we understand who we are, then we can begin to understand who others are. But the first goal is to know who we are. So how do we, raise our children, say from a 0 to 3-year-old? Who are they? What is our culture? Where do we live? What do we believe in? What's important to us? What are our family values? That's the kind of thing that we can share with our children. It can be books, but it can be the food we eat. It can be the events that we go to, the organizations we support. Being in community together, attending events, dancing, anything like that makes up who they are. And then as they then start to construct themselves, they'll be able to see by interacting with the world who they are, and who they realize Montessori children, they're so capable, right? They know that they're able to do things. That preschooler, he's able to make pancakes for themselves, or a 6 to 12-year-old who sees an injustice and decides, I'm going to do something about that. And they'll write a letter to the government to make a change in the world. So we want this child to know who they are and to self-construct themselves. And then the third part about knowing themselves is, what is my cosmic task? And this isn't something that a baby's going to understand, but it's something that the child is going to be working on. And it's a real reminder, for those of you who don't know the word cosmic task, it means like, what are we on the planet to do? What is this child on the planet to do? What is my drive to contribute? What am I going to give to the world? But also, how do I belong in the world can also be my cosmic task. And how can I make sense of the world? And like, as I said, this is something they're going to reveal to us, as opposed to that we can give to them. So that means that we need to remember, as adults and educators and parents and carers, to step back to support their development, but not to take over. So I always like to use the example of the cactus. So a cactus, even if you feed it and you water it and you give it sunlight and love, you can't turn it into an orchid. It's always going to be a cactus, right? And so we need to it would get really prickly if we actually tried to shape it and make it into something else. So that's the beauty of Montessori, is that we can step back, and instead of wanting to turn our child into something else or be worried about how they're developing, we can trust that they are going to find their way of acting in the world that's going to have the biggest impact for themselves. A big part of being at peace with ourselves is also the ability to develop independence and to have autonomy. Because everyone wants autonomy in the world. Everyone wants to have their own choice of over their body and over their choices that they make, right? And independence is actually our role for them to develop from someone who's dependent on us to collaboration to independence. And through the 4 planes of development, we start with the child in the first plane of development who is dependent on us. And then to the 4th plane of development, where they go out into the world, we take away the prepared environment, but we're still there to support them as they make that transition. So I love what Zoe Paul calls it. She calls it warm independence, because I think independence these days has a bit of a bad name. But warm independence means, how am I going to contribute? How do I look after myself? How can I be supported by loved ones rather than being like abandoned or something like that? Right, as opposed to independence, which is like, oh, you have to be able to fend for yourself and not look after people and those kind of things. So I think that as parents and educators, we can think like, does my child actually have real opportunities for independence and autonomy each day? And like in the first plane of development, just to give you some examples, that will be like functional independence, of like how they can look after themselves, how like daily things, getting dressed, brushing their teeth, putting their shoes in the basket, setting the table and taking part in those small daily tasks. And then the 6 to 12-year-old is into mental independence. They're thinking for themselves. They're actually so amazingly they've got so much energy for the knowing what's beyond, going beyond what's now in front of them into the mind. Yeah, that imagination takes off in the 6 to 12 age groups. And in 12 to 18, you have the social independence, economic independence. And then as they move out into the 4th plane, you have also, they're giving back in society, and they're working out who they are out into the society and the big society of the world. Um, okay. So now the other part that gives you peace within yourselves is this normalized and self-regulated behavior. So I don't love the word normalized, but I know that it actually just means how. I think that if Dr. Montessori was writing today, I wonder if she would use the word self-regulated, because a child who's normalized often has the same characteristics of a child who is regulated, right? So when you, if you've never heard of this before, one part of raising a Montessori child is finding activities that are meeting the child's need right now. So we, as a Montessori adult, observe the child. We see that they're working to master, and we might set up an activity with a beginning, middle, and end for them to master. And when you're working on something that you're really interested in, and you see a child posting a coin over and over again, this little 16-month-old who's just learned to get it into the box, it's not because they need that skill later in their life. They're going to be able to work that out. It's actually because they're actually mastering movement and refining their movement. They're able to see, I can do it myself. I can open the box and I can do it again and again. I get repetition. I get the deep concentration. And what happens is you also get into a very, very normalized state, a very relaxed and calm state. And then if something happens, like you fall off your chair, you're more likely to kind of like bounce back up. Or if someone's aggressive to you, you're more likely to smile and say, are you okay? As opposed to feeling defensive. So Dr. Montessori really had something when she worked out how children got so calm and focused and concentrated in the classroom, became normalized, because this is actually like one of the underpinning elements that's going to make this an education for peace, that's going to actually be this pathway to peace as well in the greater society. And then the last part that we can also give the child is this calm, peaceful, ordered environment. So just think of yourself as you walk into this chaos, you open up the toy room and there's toys everywhere. It just feels very chaotic. But we can also help the child have peace within themselves when they know where they can find things, when they feel like they belong because their things are set up in a way that they can access them independently. They've got artwork and plants at their height. It feels attractive for them. And it's a bit like if you go to someone's house and they've really taken the time to make a space ready for you, you feel like you're welcome and a part of the family. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the second part, which is the child in relation to others. And one of the biggest parts of this, we're in community, and I love that we're talking about community today because I think sometimes it's overlooked in Montessori. We focus so much on independence and the child being able to do things for themselves, but also this is so that they can be part of their community and contribute. And grace and courtesy is a big part of that. And for those of you who are new to to Montessori, grace and courtesy is kind of like rules of engagement for living in society, right? Because there's a phrase that I love, not Montessori, but it's a quote like, "My freedom ends where yours begins." I think we talked about this last childhood potential conference, actually. Yes. So for those of you, you can go back and review your notes from last year. But my freedom ends where yours begins means that I can do what I like until it has an impact on somebody else, right? So it means that I need to be respectful of not only the environment, but also other people. So grace and courtesy means that when you're in a Montessori classroom, you'll learn how to walk around a mat or how you show gratitude to someone. So please and thank you, all those kind of things. So in our homes, we can think, how are we going to model to our child how we're going to do grace and courtesy in our home? It might be that we're going to set up a situation where we have all of the bowls in the middle of the table at our mealtime. And then we'll be able to say to our child, "Oh, would you please pass the peas?" And then they pass the peas, and we can say, "Oh, thank you." Because in the 0 to 3 years, I hear so many parents say, "What do you say? What do you say? What do you say?" And actually, they're in the absorbent mind, unconscious absorbent mind, which we just need to trust. If we keep modeling it, they will pick it up. And then between 3 to 6, we can give more formal lessons, like where we practice things. We might, have a little tea party and practice saying thank you because they're about to have their birthday party, and how you accept a gift from a friend, or how you excuse yourself, or how to interrupt someone, that they put their hand onto your shoulder and then you put your hand on their hand so that they know that as soon as you're finished, like you can say, "Yeah, what did you want?" And then they can go further from that. So these are like little grace and courtesy lessons that you can work on in your family so that they can then be at peace with others. Because you know that if we don't show grace and courtesy to other people, then they get mad. If someone walks straight across your mat and you've been working really hard lining up all of the beads in their rows, then it's not showing respect for others. So these grace and courtesy lessons are so important so that our child can also interact with others in a peaceful way. Then another big important part of finding peace with others is to understand others. So goal 2 in the book Anti-Bias Education for Our Children Ourselves is actually also understanding other people. So this might be what Rudine Sims Bishop, she talked about books being mirrors, windows, and sliding doors. That if you actually show not only what your child looks like, but other children and other situations, then a sliding door means that they get a peek in and can actually travel and feel like what it would be like in someone else's shoes. It can be taking part in community events. It can be contributing. It can be many other ways to understand others. And it can also be like learning to show them how you stand up for others, so that if someone makes fun of a friend of theirs, they can actually stand up and say, "It's not nice to say that about my friend." And they don't care if you don't like their blah, blah, blah. If someone's made a comment about their food that they brought for in class that's different from theirs, instead of saying it stinks, it'd be like, "Oh, it's different to what you're used to. Maybe, we could make sushi and see what it tastes like," so that everyone understands what that would be. And then dealing with conflict is another big part of having peace with others. In a Montessori environment, I love that there is a very clear structure to preserve dignity, really, with all parties. Because if you think about it, it might seem controversial, but actually, from everyone's perspective, they're right. The person who walked across someone else's mat, they're right, because they're just trying to get to their work. They're not trying to, upset a child usually. Or a toddler who snatches off another child. He's just seeing a toy right now and wants it in that moment. Or if I accidentally turn on my microphone now and I say something, it's not because I'm trying to interrupt the whole presentation. It's just that maybe I don't know about the grace and courtesy rules and those kind of things. So we're giving everybody almost the benefit of the doubt, and we want to be able to find a way rather than judging them. Montessori always observe them. I see the child taking it out of another child's hand. And then we can take action. We can, step 1, we can stop the inappropriate behavior. We can say, "Oh, it's Simone's turn right now. It will be available soon." And then the step 2 can be like, we acknowledge how they feel. "Yeah, you really wanted a turn right now. Uh-huh. Yeah. And then step three, you can help them to make it up to the other person. We're going to give the toy back to them, and then you can have a turn next. So we help them to restore amends. Or if the child's crying, let's get them a tissue, or would you like to get them a cloth? And obviously with a toddler, I'm mostly modeling that behavior, but I'm showing them that when we do something wrong, we make amends with with the other people. And then the fourth step is like a long-term thing. I'm going to teach them the skills that they are missing right now. So for example, we're going to look with our eyes. We're not going to touch that person's work. Or we're going to stand with our hands behind our back because it's really hard not to touch, isn't it? And practice those skills so that over time they actually start to be able to avoid conflicts, but also resolve conflicts. And you can also see, like in older age groups, 3 to 6 and 6 to 12, they may have a peace table where they can solve conflicts because they take turns listening to each other, they respect other people, they collaborate perhaps, and they can come up with some creative solutions, and maybe even ones that we wouldn't have thought of. And instead of then them thinking, oh, Lucy always takes their side or Simone always takes their side, instead it would be, oh, I feel heard, we came up with a solution together, and the guide is there, the parent or the educator, to help them resolve it themselves. So in the big picture, what that means is that we're helping our children to take responsibility for their actions. When they do something wrong, it's not a mistake. Well, it is a mistake, but they can learn from their mistakes. And even we make mistakes, and we can apologize and say, I know, like, I should have said this, or what I should have done is that, and I apologize, and I'm going to make it up to you. Some children might like you to write them a letter, or another child might make a picture to give to a friend to make it up to them. Or perhaps you'll help them to make a phone call to apologize to someone who's been hurt. They're the hard parts, but they're actually the parts that help the child grow the most. It's easy to make a child happy, but it's actually us helping to support them even in those difficult moments. Another part of finding peace with others is obviously helping others. And how do children learn to help others? By us, when they start, in their first plane of development, to be shown, that we are contributing to our neighbors, that we're contributing to our family, that we're contributing to the larger community, that we know how to help. Are we giving them opportunities to learn to help others? Like I think it's always fun when something happens in the Montessori classroom and a child trips over and 100 pieces go everywhere, right? Because that's an opportunity to say, oh, it looks like Charlie dropped things. Would anyone like to help? And we can start to pick up some pieces. And then when you do this and you keep modeling it, you see the children pick it up and they start to initiate this by themselves. And it always just lights up your heart when a child goes over to get a tissue and offer it to a friend who's crying if they've fallen over or something like that, because you can see that example of helping others is transferring into the children as well. I also loved when we were writing the book, The Montessori Baby. Junifer Uzadike was my co-author, and she was talking about, she has 4 children, and when she had 2 boys and the third babe was still a baby, instead of the baby starts crying, instead of her rushing off to do it, she said, oh, would one of you like to help the baby? And she trusted the child, and they felt really important. And you're modeling how to help others. Instead of it's just always the parents or the educators or the adults doing everything, we're actually giving and trusting the younger children to take that responsibility and to have that, it feels so amazing to help others, and they can have that feeling as well. And as they get older, we're going to be able to talk about injustices and how we can take action. So right now, if you have a 6 to 12-year-old and they're really touched by what's happening in the world, you can find out what they're most passionate about and what they might like to do to take action. For example, from a very small example, it's not about violence or anything bigger than that. This is just, you're walking down the street and there's a crack in the pavement. Britt Hawthorne always gives this example. Like, you can talk to your child about who's going to be disturbed by this crack in the pavement. So maybe someone who's pushing a wheelchair, or maybe someone with a pram or a stroller with a young child. And then maybe they might like to write to the local council and see if they can get it fixed so that they can see that they can take action. And then as they become teenagers and adolescents, it's really important for them to think and be part of something that's bigger than themselves. So for whatever they feel is the biggest injustice, it might be climate change, it might be immigration, violence against immigrants, it might be something else. They can find organizations and like-minded people to raise money, to make their voices heard, to maybe canvass their neighbors and things like this, so that they can feel like they've got a meaningful part and they're taking action against injustice. And then eventually, it may not seem like it yet, but children start to act for the greater good. So you'll see that someone might say, well, I really wanted to do that, but because everyone else wants to, then I'll do that too. And that happens, the 6 to 12 age group when they're starting to become members of their little society, and acting that way. So keep thinking, understanding it. You may not see it now that they're caring for others, but keep modeling and keep practicing, and then eventually you'll see them even giving up what they want for the greater good. Okay, so we're moving into the third part, which is the child coming to peace with the environment. And the first thing that comes to my mind is nature. Yeah. So, does my child spend regular time in nature? And for those of you with 0 to 6 children, they're sensorial learners. And so, do I let them use all their senses to connect with the earth? Do I let them touch, smell, hear, see, taste, everything around them? Or are they, attracted by these screens? What is my approach going to be for screens? We have workshops on that, and I'm sure there'll be some even as part of childhood potential. But we have some as well. And when you say under 6 years old, the child does not need a screen. They may do some video calling with friends, with family across the world, but they don't need a screen. They're sensorial learners. It's so much more tactile to actually hold something in your hand and to physically be able to manipulate it, rather than being on a screen. But being in nature is the best of all because you're in contact with something that gives you awe. Yeah. How many times have you just sat by a river and just felt the peace wash over you? Because everything in the animal kingdom seems very peaceful. It's self-sustaining and self-regenerating. And yes, one animal might kill another animal as part of the food chain, but it all is in a balance and equilibrium. And I loved watching the Biggest Little Farm documentary. Did anyone ever see that? I'll pop the name in here. Biggest Little Farm, and it's about how a family in California have buy a farm, and the soil's all degraded. And over time, they work to regenerate the soil. And then they start to introduce many species of trees, and they introduce many different food in the food chain. And they start off with chickens being attacked by foxes. And it takes a long time, but eventually, when they move out of the way, the system balances itself. And it's really, really beautiful. They have fires, floods, and everything come through. And it's quite incredible what happens when we get out of the way, right? Care and connection is also another part of being at peace with the environment. So, do we show our child how we care for our things instead of replacing them? Do we show them how we feel connected with the environment and want to care for it? Do we show them how to respect nature? And that could even start from the time that they just want to pull a leaf off the plant in our house to putting things back when we're going on treasure hunts and things like that. Okay, let's return them now back to the earth. But one thing that I think is really special about Montessori is we often talk about the interconnectedness of all things. We talk about particularly in 6 to 12, what's our cosmic task, not just what's our cosmic task, but what's the cosmic task of everything around us, right? And this isn't a new idea. Montessori didn't come up with this. Braiding in the book Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. She's an Indigenous botanist, and it's so fascinating because she talks about how the intersection of science and Indigenous wisdom. And there was one chapter that I adored called Learning the Grammar of Animacy. And basically, it talks about how in Indigenous language, everything from rocks to mountains, water and fire, names of places, instead of being a what, they're a who, which means that they really are meant to be respected and cared for. And I think it's such a respectful way to speak about nature. So in case you want that, I'll pop the name of that book in the chat as well. It's amazing. Really a good read. Oops. Yeah, here you go. So, which brings me to regeneration. And we all know the 3 R's, like the reduce, reuse, recycle. But actually, in Montessori, we need to go further. We need to go to the 4th R, which is regenerate. And that's where we look at the earth and the world that we inhabit, and we actually want to leave the world better than we found it. I think that's our responsibility as Montessorians and as children and all those kind of things to actually create a planet which is healthier and stronger and well nourished. And there's a beautiful program, I've written it down here, called Vital Rhythms, that's run in Mexico. I heard about it through Carlos Shivers, and he has a Montessori school in Mexico. It's not his program, but he's using it in his school. And basically, Vital Rhythms is helping the children to connect with the rhythms around them. So it's about recording the sunrise and the sunset. It's about recording any changes to the flora and fauna that the children see around them, the rainfall, humidity, all these kind of things. And what they're noticing is that when the children every day record what's happening around them, they're actually more connected with and want to care for the environment, which I think is a really powerful thing that maybe you could practice at your home or in your schools as well. Okay, so then step 4 is the adult, and that's us. And as the adult, we've heard of the absorbent mind, I think most of you, how children are like a sponge and they pick up things like language so easily when they're under 6 years old. But they're not just picking up language, they're also observing how we bring peace to ourselves and us being models of peace. And we need to think about how do we find meaning in our own lives? How do we take care of ourselves? Are we observing or are we judging? It's so powerful to see how much, when there's so much fear and that presented every day in the news, it's hard for us to find the peace, but we need to model that to our children more than ever. And how do we model peace with the child? Do we show them patience? Do we maybe have those kind and clear limits so that we don't have to swing from being, letting them do whatever they want to freaking out and then panicking? But when we can just set a kind and clear limit early, we actually have much more peace and we're modeling how we can be kind with others as well. I always think that Montessori is really interesting. Once you've been doing Montessori for a while, you see how important it is for this child to be respected, how it's so important to let them concentrate and to not interfere with them, to not judge them, to support them. But then we don't often do that with our colleagues, or we may not do it with our neighbors or our partner or our mother-in-law or the people who think opposite to us in politics or religion or something else. And that's divisive. And I think that that's an area where we can really grow in our Montessori practices is how do we sit with perhaps nonviolent communication to really learn about someone else's experiences? Because what happens at the peace table in the children's house is that I get to say what is my problem and someone else gets to say what their problem is. And maybe we come up with some solutions that are even better. So we may not be able to change what's happening in politics, but we can change what's happening in our house and we can change what's happening in our street and we can have to change what's happening in our community. And I think that's where we need to focus our sphere of impact. And that's where we can have more peace in our lives and to give our children hope and make them feel safe because children from 0 to 3 should not be experiencing anything. There's a beautiful YouTube video, which I'll share in the resources later, which was when the war in Ukraine broke out. There were 3 Montessori trainers who got on a call and they talked about what you can do with 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 12, 12 to 18 at the different phases. And the 0 to 3-year-old shouldn't notice anything's happening. We need to show them they've got this unconscious, absorbent mind, this beautiful slate. We do not want to taint it with any fear, right? So we need to have places where we can process our emotions and our fears so that we can show up to use gentle hands as we're picking them up for them to feel safe and secure. And even if you are actually having to leave somewhere right now, that you keep it as positive as possible as you go forward. The 3 to 6-year-old also has a lot of misunderstanding. They might get a snippet of what's happening in the news and they hear it playing again and again, and they might actually think that's happening next door and they need to have a context of where it's happening. Or are we going to take them to protests? How much are we going to get them involved at this stage? And the 6 to 12-year-olds, we can really get them to research and find out the resources that they really need right now. Okay, so with others, we definitely want to think about how we're modeling peace with other people as well. And actually, I will share a story as well. Yesterday, it was on the weekend. We were cycling with my daughter. She's 23. And Amsterdam, I live in Amsterdam, and we're cycling along. And there's a tourist standing in the middle of a very busy road to take a photo of the Amstel River of someone, right? And my bell's broken. And all of a sudden, I found myself going, hello, hello, and I laughed as I left because I thought, where did that come from? That was so angry and so unkind. But actually, I kind of now wish I could go back and make amends to her as well, because yes, I justified myself saying, oh, tourists, they're in the way and all those kind of things. But actually, I made that person's day a little bit worse. And that's my responsibility as well, right? It's small. It starts really small, but then they might pass that irritation on. It's really infectious. Fear, nastiness, meanness, hate. It's also in an unkind comment as small as that. So we all have our hands dirty, myself included, and we can always do better. And then lastly, to think about, like, how do we connect and care for the environment? Recycling is one thing, but really, how can we have a bigger impact? I find this such a hard question to really feel like, yeah, well, the oil companies are polluting so much that it doesn't really make a difference if I turn off all my lights, does it? If I compost my things. But every little bit shows our children how much we care, how much we want to put back into the earth and leave it better than we found it. And also how much peace I know that I get from being in nature as well. It's a real gift and an honor to be able to do that as well. So maybe we'll go and get our hands in the earth and we'll splash in some puddles like the kids do, and do a little bit of forest bathing as well. Erin has in the chat, Taking the War Out of Words by Sharon Ellison is a great non-defensive communication model. Oh, great. I'll definitely look into that as well. I use the Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg, which I find really helpful as well. So I love this quote by Jean Miller and Marianne White Dunlop. And they say, nothing can take away initiative as fast as when we redo something that they did. And I think like this is in context to how do we model peace with our children, that doing too much for them, I think at any age, that is something that we need to do as parents, educators, adults, is not to do something again. Like, for example, if you get your child to help you do baking and then they make a mess, right? They'll see you as you fold up the bad one and roll it out again. We have to be really respectful that they want to feel like they're contributing. And the best thing that we can do to show that we value their contribution is to let it not be perfect, for us to let them cut off something as they're making a beautiful model and then having to work out how to repair it again, then to step in. They might be going out and they're taking us to the museum and they get on the wrong bus. Just let them get on the wrong bus and let them work out that they've got it wrong as well. So nothing can take away initiative as fast as when we redo something that they did. So peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is inner regulation and meaningful connection and purpose. So I wanted to show you a short video, and then I'll give you some additional resources before we get into a little Q&A. If I hit play now, I think you should be able to hear it.
The way that MMUN has impacted me mostly came from my third year topic, which was the situation in Syria. I learned about the horrible crisis that refugees go through, and I learned a lot about internally displaced people.
We brainstormed ideas of how we can make the world a better place and how we could solve the problems. So when I came home, I started a business called Zeal Cares. I make and sell all-natural, antioxidant-rich lip balm, and for every one purchased, I gift another one to a child with cancer because their skin gets really dry during chemotherapy treatment.
For my grant, I applied to have a book drive for children who lost their books during Hurricane Harvey.
Back in 2017, there was an earthquake in Mexico City, and we wanted to do something with that to help the people. So we did an event to raise money. We found an organization called Casa Viva. They help us to find a family that need a house.
When I got home and started middle school, I started taking myself to school every day. Along the way, I saw a homeless man. One day, I just saw him asking for food, and I thought about my MMUN experiences. And I reached into my bag and found my peanut butter and jelly sandwich that I had made for myself for lunch, and I gave it to him. Turns out it's his favorite kind of sandwich, and I continued making him morning snacks from then on after.
You can start small. It really doesn't matter how small your idea is because it can take you anywhere.
If it wasn't for MMUN, I would have just kept my eyes down and he would have been one meal less.
This is the house we built for a family of 4 people. They were needing something long time ago before the earthquake.
I've learned a lot of things from MMUM, but mostly that we can make a difference. Even though we're young, even though we're small, we can make a difference in the world.
Okay, so even if they can make a difference, we can make a difference, right? I think they're super inspiring. The Montessori Model United Nations is really an impressive program. I hope you're all very touched by the things that they found, just a small thing in their community that they could do something about. So these are some additional resources. Maybe take a screenshot of this so that you can come and find all these links in the chat. And we're going to go back to the Menti. I'm going to change the slide now. And I wanted to ask you, what's one thing you can do this week to create peace in your home? So I'll just post the link again in the chat.
And I will post it on YouTube as well.
Oh, thank you. Here you go. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and go back to the other. If we can breathe. Yeah, maybe we can all take a breath together before we get into the Q&A. Respond, not react. Be present. Have patience, music. Breathe. Talk less, music. Happy music, yes. Close the TV. That can also help. Actively listen. When I'm angry, I breathe. Simplify. Let them make mistakes. Read a book. Have kind words and tone. Be happy. Give attention. Don't judge. I'm just breathing these all in because you're actually giving us a gift today where we came with a lot of fear and anxiety, and now I'm walking away calmer and a little bit more peaceful and focused on what I can do instead of what is out of my control. Declutter, yeah, because they're absorbing the environment. It's the smallest thing, but we can make a difference. We can make it a little bit quieter and more peaceful in our home. Build together, be the model, yoga, create peace, have patience, observe. Yes, please, observe. I'm glad that's big. Respect, activate my heart, trust my child. I think that's a good one to leave on. Trust my child. Keep putting your little things into the chat. And Lucy, I think it's time for us to do a Q&A.
Yeah. And I can also read a few comments from YouTube. People were answering there as well, not only on the Menti.
Okay.
Pause before responding. Pray. Hug. We are a huggy bunch. We like to give hugs when we are angry. Reduce expectations. So there are a few more comments like
I
this.
love that. And also, for those of you in the VIP, there's a PDF, which is like a checklist to download of things that you can think about just to simplify it a little bit as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that gift. Perfect. So first I will start with the questions from Zoom, even though I thought that there were not as many, but if you have more, please share them. You can also share them in the YouTube chat. I will get to some. We have like 10 minutes, so we will see where we get. Question from Deborah. At what age is it appropriate for a child to understand about conflict in the war and in the world? How to protect them from overload and overwhelm?
Absolutely. During the absorbent mind, they have no control really over that information. So I would definitely wait till over 6 years old and then make it like age appropriate. And so the less really, and to get them involved in looking for the information, they're going to feel more in control. It's really hard. Like definitely mobile phones shouldn't happen until like definitely into adolescence because of this. They'll just stumble across a video that you do not want them to see, that they shouldn't be exposed to while their brain's still forming. You know, the first definitely 0 to 3 children, we don't even want them to hear it if we can. And if you have, it's okay, but you can forgive yourself and just be more conscious about when you listen to information, how you're responding, and that you've got people that you can go to talk to about that so your children aren't hearing that all the time. So I would put it into 6 to 12 when they have got more mental capacity to research. You can look into not only what the problem is, but what you can do about it. And you know, Mr. Rogers always says there's always someone helping. So then you can actually show them not what the news wants to show, but that there actually are always people helping. Like I love following people on Instagram who actually show that things are happening to take care of the climate, because the news just wants to tell you what a climate disaster is happening, right? But there actually are people who are making changes. So there's a Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson who talks about the types of things that people are doing to help with climate change. And she has an amazing book and all these kind of things. So you can, yes, the media wants to make it seem like terrible. And actually, it's because we've got so much access to all that, and there are terrible things happening, but there's also a lot of good, and there's a lot of things that we can actually empower our children to take something that's upsetting them and to do something about it. They could maybe like do a little bake sale at their classroom, and then they can make a donation. Then they're going to feel like not disempowered, but instead I have a small bit of control over how I can help.
Mm-hmm.
And also definitely watch the YouTube clip. Actually, I think I have it in my notes. I'll drop the link because I think that that's really powerful. It really breaks down by age what's appropriate, how you can handle the questions in more detail from these Montessori trainers. If you bear with me just one moment, I'm going to look that up for you.
Perfect. Before you find it, I will answer some of the other questions here on Zoom.
Yeah.
Where do we find the PDF? So each one of the speakers in the VIP Pass section has its own site, and there we put all of the extra resources, PDFs, audio file, transcript, keynotes, everything is there. So it should be there. If you can't find it, please just get in touch, and we will get back to you.
Okay, that one's posted.
Okay. From Amani, could you give specific Montessori activities or routines that families can use at home to help children develop inner peace and social harmony, while also supporting parents to stay calm and emotionally balanced?
Oh, I love that question. Amani, do you have a specific age? Or maybe I'll go through each of the age groups. And this is just coming off the top of my head. So let's have a think. So for 0 to 3, something that you could do, Montessori activities, could be how you say thank you for your food in your home. So there's a beautiful song that we always sung in our toddler environment, which I actually think they use in Waldorf schools as well, which is called For the Golden Corn. And I'm going to sing it for you, which is not my skill, but I'm going to do it for the greater good. Do you remember me talking about for the greater good? Yeah. And it goes, for the golden corn, for the oh gosh, I can't remember it. How could I have not forgotten? I've only not been in the classroom for 2 months. For the golden corn, for the apples on the tree, for the golden honey and the something for tea, for fruits and nuts and berries that grow along the way. For birds and bees and flowers, we give thanks every day. And so it's non-denominational, it's just a graceful way. And actually, I used to hum it as we were getting ready for snack time. There was also a respectful, peaceful way to call someone to dinner is to just say la 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 la. And I learned this from observing in a Montessori 3 to 6 classroom where they would play some music to give the children a signal that the work cycle was finishing and that they were coming to a circle time to be picked up. And I thought it was so nice because there's some children who were already finished and would just start to join the circle straight away. And there were other children who had the time to pack up their bigger work or to put a name tag on to say they were coming back to it tomorrow, and things like that as well. So that is even a peaceful way to make a transition. With young children, I also talk about showing them how we respect their bodies by like saying, I'm going to pick you up now to a baby, and then just waiting till they lift up their head so that you can pick them up. So those kind of routines and rituals, even the way that we have an ordered environment for children under 6, the order is so important. And that's a respectful way to help children develop inner peace, because I always know where I'm going to find my shoes. And even often they'll line up our shoes for us, because we sometimes take them off in the living room and sometimes at the door and sometimes in my bedroom and things like that. And the children will put them back. So all of these little things are small, but they all contribute to this inner peace. It could also be, if you have religion or a spiritual practice, that your children are involved with that. So I used to meditate and lie in my bed, and I would hear my children coming downstairs. And when I was first meditating, I was thinking, oh, they're disturbing my meditation. But then you actually realize they are part of the meditation and the gratitude practice. Like, oh, I get to hear those children's footsteps coming down. And then I would just say, I'm meditating right now. You can lie next to me, or I'll be available soon. And yeah, it's actually a beautiful way to share the inner peace. Then you can make a list on your fridge for older children. What are the things that, bring us back to calm, or that help us? Because there's kind of 2 types of calm. There's one is like preventative calm, things that we do to help regulate our nervous system. And then there's what we can do when we're angry and come back to calm. So on your list of, these are the things that help me. Like I could add tea at the top of my list. I drink so much tea, but it means I pause, I take a breath. They see me do that. Looking out the window, looking at the birds, connecting with nature. Let's go to the playground. Let's make sure we get to the woods this weekend. Those kind of things are all practices to help them to realize that we need to be able to function, and how do we keep our inner calm. One of the biggest parts is being able to process our emotions as well, because we want to be emotionally regulated so we can help co-regulate with our children. And so one of the practices that I like to do is to scan my body where the fear is, or where I'm feeling tension, or I'm feeling anxiety. And then it often is something like a ball in my throat, or a rock in my heart, or like a big trunk of tree across my shoulders. And then you can just observe it and breathe out and just sit with it. And sometimes what happens is that big trunk of tree on my shoulders just gets a little bit lighter and a little bit smaller, and I can help them actually show them how I process my emotions. Sometimes I shake my whole body, and shaking is really great to actually, get the cortisol out of your body and out of your system as well. Yoga practice, you could start doing with older ones, or even just if you're modeling that yourself. Anyway, I think that hopefully that's enough ideas. Did that help? Oh yeah, thank you. That's helpful. Good. I could keep talking about that for way too long, but if anyone else has any other suggestions, please pop them in the chat.
Perfect. I will take one question from YouTube, from Danita, most probably. We are moving abroad. How do I assist and make her feel safe during this move? She's 20 months old.
That's a beautiful question. And the fact that you're even being mindful about including your child is already a beautiful, practice. So there's beautiful books that you can read about moving house, which shows your house being packed up and moving, and then they get an idea of what's going to be happening. We can go and visit. I think it was an international move, was it, Lucy? No, just moving in general.
She didn't mention that,
Okay.
so I don't know.
So if it's somewhere that you're moving locally, you can definitely go and visit the other house, and that you may not be able to enter the house yet, but you can see how close it is. You can cycle your bike, you can take photos so that they know. You can make a little book, and it doesn't have to be that you get it printed. Even you could just print out a couple of pages of, this is the new house, we're going to pack up this house, and you can talk about your things and involve them that way. I think it's actually nice for them to see some of the packing process, because I've had some families say, oh, I'm going to give them to the grandparents while we pack up the house, and just all of a sudden you turn up at the new house, but they don't concretely understand, particularly a 20-month-old, what happened to the old house. So actually to have them with you when you say goodbye to that house, then maybe the grandparents could help look after the child. And then they come while you're still unpacking some boxes at the other end. They see the moving truck arrive or depart, involving them as much as possible. And if they're upset about it, instead of, oh, don't worry about it, we're just moving to a house and you're going to be so happy in this new place and don't worry about it. It's really hard, but instead to say, yeah, I know. Yeah, you miss the old house. That can be really hard. Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening. I hear you. And just keep sitting there for as long as you can without trying to fix the problem. Let them feel their feelings because that's a way of them processing their emotions. So many times we actually shut down their ability to process those emotions. Children can do it so quickly. Where does it feel hard in your body? Oh, your heart feels heavy. I can feel that with you. And then once they name it, sometimes it's already gone. So that can be really helpful as well. Oh, she said more moving abroad. We moved from Mexico to the UK and involved the 3-year-old in everything. Great. Yeah, exactly. So they can pack up their box, make sure their box is ready to unpack at the other end so that they've got their special things for the first nights and make it as fun as you can, which is hard when it can be very stressful doing an international move for sure. But thank you for thinking of them.
Perfect. Simone, thank you. I think I will stop the questions here because we have another live talk coming in 30 minutes with Chip De Lorenzo. So I'm excited for that as well, so we can have a few minutes to drink, use the toilet, or things like that. So uh, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your presentation. I loved it. I think everyone did. And thank you for everything.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And thank you everyone who was on the call live and for anyone who's watching the recording as well. I hope that we can bring a little bit more calm to your lives and to your children's lives. Yeah, you've got this. Thanks,
Perfect.
everyone.
Thank you. And for all of you who are here, please join us in 30 minutes. You all have the links in your emails to Zoom and to YouTube. I can't wait to see you. Chip is going to talk about a very interesting topic. His talk is called Things I Promised I Wouldn't Do as a Parent. So I think we will have some good laughs and it will be fun. And I think we will all be able to connect with all of the topics. So join us in 30 minutes. I also want to say to everyone who is watching us on YouTube, tonight is the last day when you can buy the VIP pass for a much lower price. So please do so if you are, on the edge of should I, shouldn't I? Now is the time to decide. And I can't wait to see you in a few minutes. And Simone, thank you again for supporting us, supporting the conference, for being here, for answering all of the questions, and for your beautiful presentation.
And thank you again for making this space for us all. Thanks, Lucy, for all your work.
Okay. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. And see you soon, 28 minutes. Don't go anywhere. Okay. Bye, everyone.